For number 4 on the review, we have to find the x-intercepts, horizontal asymptotes, and vertical asymptotes. The x-intercept is when your y value is 0, which means essentially this side of the graph would be 0. And if this is going to be 0, our numerator has to be equal to 0. Our denominator would have to be a number other than 0 for this to work out. But essentially we need the numerator to be equal to 0. So I'm going to set negative 8x equal to 0, divide by negative 8, and get that x equals 0. So my y value is 0 like it's supposed to be. My x value would be 0. So it's going to be the point 0, 0 for my x-intercept. And there happens to only be 1 here. And for the horizontal asymptote, that depends on where your higher exponent is on your x's. In this case, the higher exponent on my x's is on the bottom. When this happens, you need to look to see if there's some plus or minus number out to the right side of that fraction. If there is not, then you would write y equals 0. Remember, if the exponent on the x were equal, you would take the coefficients on them and set up your ratio with that to make a fraction and reduce that. And if there was higher exponent on the x on top, there would be no horizontal asymptotes. For the vertical asymptote, you set the denominator equal to 0. I'm going to add 9 to solve for x, and then square root. So you get plus or minus 3, because it could be a positive or a negative 3 when squared to get a 9. And so that will be x equals plus or minus 3. Remember, if they asked you for the domain and the range, the domain would be all real numbers except when x is equal to positive and negative 3. And for the range, it would be y equals all reals except for y equal to 0. For number 5, we're going to pretty much do the same thing, except we only want the vertical asymptotes. So we're going to set the denominator equal to 0. So that's going to be x squared minus 3x minus 40 equals 0. I need to factor this, so I need factors of 40. Since it's a negative 40, I need to think about, factors that have opposite signs, like negative 4 and 10, negative 10 and 4. I need my factors to be 3 apart, though, when I'm factoring this. So I need to think closer together, like negative 8 and 5, negative 5 and 8. And the sum of them has to be negative 3. So when I'm looking at my options, like this would give me 6, that would give me negative 6. This one will give me negative 3. That's what I want. So I want x minus 8 and x plus 5. And so that's going to be equal to 0. So you need to set each of these equal to 0. And solve. Here we're going to solve by adding 8. Here we're going to solve by subtracting 5. And here we have our 2 vertical asymptotes for the problem.